I never quite pinpointed the exact moment things started to unravel with Grace. Looking back, it feels less like a sudden break and more like a slow, insidious corrosion. I loved her, you know? Not just loved her, but adored the woman I married. She had this quiet intensity, this fierce loyalty that initially drew me in. I knew she worried about me, especially after her dad. His heart attack hit her hard, left a scar I think she carried constantly. And yeah, I'd let myself go a bit. Life got busy, comfortable. A few extra pounds turned into quite a few. I enjoyed food. I enjoyed gatherings. I enjoyed being the guy whose laugh could shake the rafters. It was part of who I was. But somewhere along the line, Grace's worry curdled. It stopped being about my health in a loving way and became this sharp, focused beam aimed squarely at the numbers on the scale, at the size of my clothes. Her fear, which I understood intellectually, started feeling like judgment, like disappointment. Seeing me, she said, was like seeing her dad all over again, a ticking time bomb. I tried to brush it off, to reassure her, but she started looking through me, seeing only the weight, the perceived risk. It wasn't just about my health anymore. I had become the problem she needed to fix. And that realization? That cut deeper than any number on a scale ever could. Then came that dinner. I remember the meal. Pasta, I think, something usually comforting. But the air was thick with unspoken tension. She laid out her plan, her voice calm, measured, as if discussing a business proposal. Tying intimacy, our intimacy, the very core of our connection, to pounds lost. She framed it as motivation, a way to help me. Valentine's Day, our anniversary, our birthdays. For times a year. If I met the goals. For times. The word echoed in the sudden silence. I felt my insides clench, a cold dread washing over me. Argue? What was the point? It would just feed into her narrative that I was resistant, that I didn't care about myself, about us. So, I just nodded. I watched the flicker of triumph, of conviction, in her eyes. She truly believed she was doing the right thing, saving me. In that moment, though, watching her lay out the terms of our physical relationship like a contract, something vital inside me just dimmed. I tried to tell myself she meant well, that maybe this was the push I needed. But it felt wrong, fundamentally wrong. And so began the longest 2 years of my life. The diet wasn't just restrictive, it was punitive. Constant hunger gnawed at me. The workouts left me exhausted, aching. Grace became my warden, my cheerleader, my judge, all rolled into one. Every pound shed was met with praise that felt increasingly hollow, every way in a performance review. She'd lay out my workout clothes, portion my meals with meticulous precision. It wasn't teamwork, it was management. The weight did come off, painstakingly at first, then more rapidly. Friends and family gushed, "Mark, you look incredible, like a new man." I'd force a smile, nod, thank them. But inside, I felt like I was disappearing. The hearty laugh that used to define me got stuck in my throat. Dinners became silent affairs, the clinking of forks the loudest sound in the room. I started spending more time in the garage after work, surrounded by tools I barely used, just needing space to breathe, to escape the constant scrutiny, the gnawing emptiness. The urge to sneak food, a handful of forbidden chips, a chocolate bar wolfed down in secret, wasn't just about hunger, it was a desperate grab for a moment of normalcy, a tiny rebellion against the suffocating control. When she caught me that one time with the candy bar, her disappointment was sharp. "Do you even care?" she demanded. Care? The irony was bitter. I was sacrificing my joy, my comfort, my very sense of self, trying to earn back the woman I loved, the connection she now held hostage. Her constant refrain, "I'm doing this for us," rang increasingly false. This wasn't about us. This was her project, and I was the failing component she needed to whip into shape. That first Valentine's Day under the new regime felt like a cruel joke. I'd hit the target weight she'd set. She seemed to expect some grand celebration, a passionate reunion. All I felt was bone-deep weariness and a profound sense of disconnection. When she pressed me about my mood, all I could muster was, "It's just a lot." How could I articulate that losing weight under duress felt less like a victory and more like a slow erasure of the man I used to be? By the second year, I was over 100 pounds lighter. Physically, I was transformed. But the man Grace married? He was gone, replaced by this thinner, quieter, sadder version. My shoulders slumped even when I tried to stand tall. The compliments felt alien, directed at a stranger inhabiting my skin. Then came the day I finally hit the ultimate goal, 120 pounds lost. I was exhausted, depleted, but done. I told Grace, maybe with a flicker of hope, that I wanted to stop. Stop the obsessive counting, the relentless tracking, the weigh-ins. I just wanted to find a sustainable way to live, to maybe enjoy food again without guilt, to feel like myself. The look on her face wasn't relief or pride. It was sheer panic. "You can't quit now," she insisted, her voice tight with alarm. "We've come so far." That goddamn "we" again. Something inside me finally snapped. The resentment, the hurt, the years of forced compliance boiled over. "We." I heard my voice rise, sharper than I intended. "There is no "we" in this, Grace. I've done this. For you. Do you have any idea how brutal this has been? The constant hunger, the exhaustion day after day, the pressure cooker you've put me in." She looked genuinely bewildered, as if the misery I was describing was news to her. And for what? The words tumbled out, fueled by years of suppressed frustration. "So you can keep doling out intimacy like it's some kind of reward for good behavior? Do you even love me anymore, Grace? Or am I just your goddamn renovation project?" Her response wasn't an answer, it was a detonation. She didn't address the pain, the question of love. Instead, her own fear lashed out. "If you quit now," she said, her voice suddenly cold, cutting, "don't expect me to wait around. I have needs, Mark." The air went still. A threat. Using the very thing she'd weaponized against me for 2 years. My head physically snapped up, the shock like a jolt of electricity. The betrayal wasn't just physical absence, it was this calculated cruelty. "You're threatening me?" My voice was dangerously low, disbelief warring with a chilling certainty. She saw it then, the irreparable damage her words caused, and tried to backtrack, stammering, "No, I just meant," but the poison was out. "You are," I interrupted, the coldness spreading through me. "You're telling me, point blank, that if I don't keep starving and punishing myself, you'll find someone else to meet your needs?" The look on her face confirmed it. She knew she'd obliterated something fundamental. I stared at her, this woman who shared my bed, my life, and saw a stranger driven by a fear so profound it had made her cruel. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the room, the echo of her threat ringing in my ears. That night was the beginning of the end. Sleep was impossible. The silence in the house wasn't peaceful, it was heavy, suffocating. When I finally crept into bed hours later, I turned my back, the space between us feeling wider than the mattress, wider than the room, an unbridgeable chasm. The next morning, the frost had set in. Polite, distant, cold. No kiss goodbye. How could I touch her knowing her affection was conditional, her loyalty contingent on my adherence to her rules? Her threat wasn't just words, it was a revelation of character. "If you quit, I'll have to find someone else." The insidious question wormed its way into my thoughts. Had she already? Was this threat rooted in reality? I needed space. The garage became my sanctuary, the scent of oil and sawdust a strange comfort. Grace tried, in her way. His favorite meals appeared. Tentative questions about his day were offered. but they felt like attempts to smooth over a crack that had become a gaping wound. Her threat vibrated beneath every interaction. Why? The question became a relentless drumbeat in my mind. Why destroy us like this? Suspicion, once planted, grew like a weed. Little things started pinging on my radar. Her sudden guardedness with her phone, which used to lie casually on the counter. Her increased outings with vague explanations, meeting friends, running errands. Then there was Daniel, the trainer. She had pushed me to work with him months ago. He's amazing. Mark really knows his stuff. Hindsight cast a sickening light on her enthusiasm. One Wednesday, she mentioned lunch with her brother, but I saw her leaving with a folder, her movements quick, almost furtive. It just felt wrong. I started paying closer attention, noticing the subtle shifts, the guarded glances. One evening, needing a document, I found the office door locked while she was inside. My stomach plummeted. What was she hiding? The doubt festered, becoming unbearable. One sleepless night, fueled by a cold dread, I went online and accessed our phone records. It wasn't difficult. Shared account, simple password. Scrolling through months, then years, of logs felt like digging through wreckage. And then, the pattern emerged, stark and undeniable. Wednesday mornings. Friday afternoons. Call after call, text after text. Dozens. Over 100 connections. Always the same number. My blood ran cold as I cross-referenced it. Daniel's number. Our trainer. The man she'd encouraged me to trust, to work with, while I was starving myself for her approval. The needs she'd threatened me with weren't hypothetical, they were being met elsewhere. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was a calculated, ongoing deception. A wave of nausea hit me, followed by an anger so cold and sharp it felt like ice shards in my veins. All the sacrifices, the misery, the public transformation hailed as a success while my private life disintegrated. It was all a lie. Her lie. I needed undeniable proof, something she couldn't twist or explain away. Over the next few days, I gathered everything methodically, printed the logs, recovered deleted messages where I could, even used a small digital recorder left discreetly near her phone during suspect times. The picture became brutally clear. Her talk about getting a new hairstyle that upcoming Friday, claiming it was to freshen things up for us. The recording caught her telling Janine it was because she wanted to look good for someone else. The pieces slammed into place, each one more painful than the last. I knew I had to confront her, but raw anger wouldn't suffice. This required cold precision. I told her I needed a few days away to clear my head. The time apart wasn't just for show. I needed it to process the enormity of her betrayal, to steel myself for what came next. When I returned that Friday evening, I picked up lasagna, her favorite. A final, twisted irony. I needed to watch her face, to see the lies crumble. Walking into the house, I projected a calm I didn't feel, the storm churning beneath the surface. Thought we could have dinner together, I said, the smile feeling like a mask glued to my face. The silence during dinner was thick with unspoken truths. Finally, I broke it, keeping my voice deliberately soft. Grace, do you think you've been honest with me? Predictably, she defaulted to denial. Of course, she replied, a fraction too fast, her hand trembling slightly as she reached for her wine glass. Are you sure about that? I let the question hang in the air, watching her composure fray at the edges. Then, I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out the damning stack of phone logs, and slid them across the polished wood table separating us. 2 years' worth. I stated, my voice flat, devoid of the emotion raging inside. Every call, every text. There's a pattern, Grace. Wednesday mornings. Friday afternoons. Consistently. Always to the same number. I paused, letting the weight of it sink in. Would you like to guess whose number it is? She was speechless, her face paling. It's Daniel's, I supplied, the name tasting like poison. Your trainer. Or perhaps I should say, our trainer? The man you so enthusiastically recommended I work with while you were. I let the sentence hang, the implication clear. Her facade shattered. It wasn't like that, she whispered, the words weak, unconvincing. Then tell me. I leaned forward, the carefully constructed calm finally cracking, letting the raw hurt bleed through. Tell me what it was like, Grace. Explain to me how over 100 calls and texts to him were innocent. Convince me. Tears welled, then spilled, tracking mascara down her cheeks. It was a mistake, she choked out between sobs. A mistake. The word exploded from me, laced with 2 years of bitterness. Forgetting your keys is a mistake, Grace. Burning the toast is a mistake. What you did, repeatedly, consciously, was a choice. I was lonely, she cried, grasping for justification. You were so obsessed with the diet, the milestones. I felt invisible. Invisible. The word ripped from my throat as I pushed back from the table, standing abruptly. You felt invisible while I was literally starving myself, pushing my body to its limits, sacrificing every simple pleasure to meet your demands, to make you happy? You mean that kind of invisible? The sheer audacity of her excuse fueled my anger. You didn't just hurt me, Grace, I said, the words heavy with finality. You systematically destroyed us. Her pleas began then, begging forgiveness, promising she'd fix it, swearing she loved me. But the words were meaningless, lost in the wreckage of her lies. Fix this, I repeated, the fight draining out of me, leaving only a vast, aching emptiness. Trust isn't a vase you can glue back together once it's smashed into a million pieces, Grace. And you hammered ours to dust. I took a deep breath, the decision solidifying with chilling clarity. What happens now, I said, my voice regaining its steadiness, is that I file for divorce. I cannot, will not, stay married to someone I can no longer trust, someone who looks at me and sees a project, not a partner. It's over. Her final, desperate cries of, I love you, felt like salt in the wound. Love, I countered, the bitterness overwhelming. You don't love me, Grace. You love the idea of controlling me, of molding me. And when your project wasn't fulfilling enough, you outsourced your needs. I couldn't bear to look at her anymore. I turned and walked away, leaving her alone at the table with the tangible proof of her betrayal. Walking out of that house, our shared life, felt like stepping off a cliff, but staying felt like suffocating. The initial days were numb. Lawyers, paperwork, finding a temporary apartment that felt sterile and lonely. The silence was different now, not tense, just empty. I ignored Grace's relentless calls and texts. There was nothing left to dissect, nothing left to salvage. My focus was singular. Sever the ties, start again. I did have one conversation with Daniel. It wasn't pleasant, but it wasn't violent, despite the whispers I heard later. I made it crystal clear, in no uncertain terms, that his professional life would suffer immensely if he ever came near my orbit again. He got the message. When I finally served Grace the divorce papers, I simply told her Daniel wouldn't be a problem anymore. Let her wonder exactly what that meant. The emptiness persisted for months. Just work, the sterile apartment, the crushing weight of the betrayal. Then, one bleak Saturday, walking aimlessly, I found myself outside an animal shelter. Dogs barked, a chaotic symphony of need. On impulse, I went inside. An hour later, I walked out with Max and Cooper, two goofy, overgrown golden retriever pups whose boundless energy was both exhausting and infectious. They forced me out of the apartment, into the park, into conversations with strangers. They licked away tears I didn't realize I was shedding. They filled the silence with panting, tail wags, and the click of claws on the floor. Slowly, painstakingly, they helped me rediscover simple joys, moments of uncomplicated affection. They started stitching me back together. And then, at the dog park, amidst the happy chaos of wagging tails and flying frisbees, I met Sophia. It started easily, a shared laugh over Max stealing her dog's ball. Conversation flowed naturally. She had kind eyes and a warmth that felt genuine, unforced. There were no games, no hidden agendas, just two people connecting. We started walking the dogs together, grabbing coffee, talking for hours about everything and nothing. It wasn't a rebound. It was a slow, gentle unfolding of something new, something healthy. It felt like breathing fresh air after being trapped underground. Months later, deep in conversation with Sophia at that same park, watching the dogs wrestle with pure abandon, I felt a prickle on the back of my neck. I looked up. Across the grassy expanse stood Grace. Time seemed to stutter. She looked thinner, haunted. Our eyes locked across the distance. I saw surprise, pain, maybe a flicker of the woman I once loved buried deep beneath the wreckage. A part of me felt a pang of something, pity, lingering hurt, but mostly, I felt distance. This was my life now, this park, these dogs, this woman beside me whose hand had instinctively found mine. I saw her internal struggle, the urge to approach, perhaps, warring with the knowledge that the bridge was well and truly burned. I gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Not forgiveness, not invitation, just acknowledgement. I see you. I survived. Goodbye. She returned the nod, tears visible even from afar, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. A finality settled over me, peaceful and profound. Life is good now. Uncomplicated. Sophia and I are building something real, something based on mutual respect and honesty. Max and Cooper are snoring at my feet as I write this. The scars are still there, faint lines mapping the past, reminding me of the pain, the betrayal, the loss. But they don't define me anymore. I escaped Grace's project, dismantled the prison she built around my heart, and found my own way back to myself, to happiness. I genuinely hope she finds peace, too, finds a way to heal from the choices she made. But my journey forward, thankfully, wonderfully, no longer involves her. I'm free. And that freedom tastes sweeter than any food I was ever denied.